Well, hello there. This is the Read Aloud video for U.S. History Assignment 10 about the effects of World War II. So for these DBQs, what you're going to do is read the document, okay, and then, per usual, just answer the question at the bottom. So for the first document, the question you're going to answer is what were two effects of World War II on Japanese Americans? Okay, I've done one as a model for you, and then I also want you to find a second effect on your own. So let's read through the document together. Two effects of World War II on Japanese Americans. So document 1 is about Japanese internment camps. The attack by Japan on U.S. Navy base Pearl Harbor on December 7, 1941, led U.S. military and political leaders to suspect that Japan was preparing a full-scale attack on the west coast of the United States. Despite the fact that there was no evidence that any Japanese Americans were spying on the U.S. or planning an attack for Japan, President Franklin D. Roosevelt declared Executive Order 9066 on February 19, 1942. It instructed military commanders to create military internment camps for Japanese Americans. The military began rounding up and forcing Japanese Americans, most of whom were U.S. citizens, into these camps. They had to give up their property to the government and live and work in these camps in harsh conditions for multiple years, even though none of them had been disloyal to the U.S. Japanese Americans were not allowed to live freely on the West Coast and were instead forced into these internment camps from 1942 to 1945. So that whole internment camp thing, I use that as my first answer of one effect of World War II on Japanese Americans, because I said that one effect was that they were forced to live and work in internment camps, even though they had not committed crimes against the U.S. So now you look for a second effect, and maybe, hint, hint, that could come in the second paragraph here. So let's keep reading. Japanese Americans also encountered hostility or anger and even violence when they were let out of camps and returned to the West Coast. There were dozens of reports of gunshots, fires, and explosions aimed at Japanese American homes, businesses, and places of worship, in addition to incidents of nonviolent crimes such as vandalism and the damaging of Japanese graves. So, we also have pictures to support. So here is a picture of a Japanese internment camp, and here is a picture of white discrimination against Japanese people even after they got back from these internment camps. So that's document 1. Document 2 is about women in the workplace. So for document 2, you're telling me, based on this document, what was one effect of World War II for women in the U.S.? All right, so for women. Okay, women in World War II took on a variety of roles. Some women embraced the traditional positions of caretakers and homemakers. Others explored new job opportunities from which women had been previously excluded or banned. This meant that at first, World War II led to over 6 million women joining the workforce in the U.S. Government campaigns targeting women were addressed mostly to housewives. One government advertisement asked women, "Can you use an electric mixer? If so, you can learn to operate a drill," right? Just like these women are doing to build war machines. Women worked in the war industries, building ships, aircrafts, vehicles, and weaponry. They also worked in factories and on farms, drove trucks, provided logistics support for soldiers, and entered professional areas of work that were previously the domain of men. They enlisted as nurses serving on the front lines, and there was a great increase in the number of women serving for the military. Although many women took on male-dominated or typically male jobs during World War II, they were expected to return to housework once men returned from the war. In 1944, when victory seemed assured or guaranteed for the United States, government-sponsored propaganda or advertising changed by urging women to return to working in the home. Later, many women assumed traditional female-dominated jobs, such as secretary or administration positions, despite women's hesitation to re-enter the low-paying jobs. However, the number of women at work in 1946 was 87% of the number in 1944, leaving 13% who had lost or quit their jobs. The overall percentage of women working fell from 36% to 28% in 1947. So it looks like it went up during the war and then down after the war. Okay, so one effect of World War II for women in the U.S.